This is a model not of a Texas smoker, but of a low Middle Age fortress, so the Dark Age fortress. So at the end of the Roman Empire, that's the end of antiquity. And then Renaissance, the beginning of the modern day, that works pretty well. Just say 1500, it's the middle, it's French, which the French love, and it works well for us as Americans because of Columbus.
And what are they using for mortar?
Just sand, lime, and water. It's 1 part lime and 3 parts sand, then we just mix the water to whatever consistency.
And how long will that hold? How long will that hold?
The same stuff was used 1,000 years ago, and the buildings are still standing.
Let me point out to you then, High Middle Ages, they returned to stone. They used cementorium. Romans invented cement. They were engineer types. They knew that you could take sand from a beach, heat it up, and get glass. Iron ore, you add charcoal for the carbon, and then flux of limestone. And out comes pig iron. You reheat it and hammer it, you get wrought iron. It's all very logical. And they made a lot of weapons out of that. And we know about the gladius and the good stuff they had. But they were engineer types, so they experimented. If you take limestone and you heat it up, you get lime. If you mix lime, sand, and water with no hardeners, you get cementorium. And with no hardeners or glue, it's a nightmare for masons because every stone has to be flat. And with flat stones, it means all that extra work. If it's not and it's angled, the wall weight will squeeze it out like toothpaste. So they have to make sure they are flat, leveled, interlocking, the whole bit. But when they're finished, they have an advantage that we missed. It's because their cement was so fibrous, it expands and contracts. If we, with modern cement, built walls 5 to 20 foot thick, like they did in the Middle Ages, like they did at the Maginot Line or other places in World War II, it's going to crack, and that's what it has. The cementorium holds together because it's so fibrous, it expands in the heat and contracts in the cold, and you don't have to worry about expansion and contraction joints. Pretty cool.
Pretty great.
That's really neat.
Flex to where you're doing it, make it better.
Yeah.
And then these are the arrow ports. And then when you get in and you walk, very simple machine, the axle through the center of the wheel, it winds up the rope over here on this side.
It winds up?
Yeah, when I get in there and walk, the whole wheel spins, and the axle in the center of the wheel spins as well, and the rope just winds around the axle with it, because I can lift 10 times my body weight in it.
Well, the wool cottage down there, she'll show you how to spin wool. What it is little pieces of fiber spun into strands.
Right.
That's what this is. This is 3 strands, and this is the way they ship it to us. It's just short fibers, like this, spun to make a rope, and then that's spin 3 together, and then this, of course, we'll take and do like this, and we'll spin 6 together to make the 13-knot cord. But in Europe in the 1300s, they would use hemp fiber, of course, and then like the tree bark behind you there, they could use that. You wet it, beat it, it's fiber. You can, as long as you can spin it into a rope form, you can make a rope out of it. They used flax alongside the road. There's a lot of flax. They boil it down, beat the fibers out of it. They use stinging nettle As long as they could make some kind of cord out of the fiber, they could make a rope.
This is a medieval tape measure, but it's also a compass and a protractor. And what it is the heart of the building of the castles as well as the sophisticated cathedrals. What it is called the rope of 13 knots. And it was the measuring standard of the medieval. You want to remember that the Middle Ages did not use the metric system. That was introduced at the time of the French Revolution, which is after ours, so it's a long time in the future. In any event, you could get the length you wanted. But you could also use it as a compass because it's a loop. Very basic, but very effective. You could have the arc that's part of a keel to become, a log to become a keel, the bow to be able to be the bow of a ship. You'd be able to use it as part of the arc in an arch of a Roman door, and then the wooden door that goes in it. You could use it as the radius for a small wheel, a big wheel, or even for a whole turret on a tower. But then you could also use it as a protractor, and that's the key. Angles for carpenters. You take the knot inside the loop, and then another carpenter holds it. You got it? Very good. All right. This is an isosceles triangle from geometry class, but they didn't call it that. They call it one of three things depending on what you do for a living. If you're a roofer, it's a steeple. If you're a shipbuilder, it is a bow cut. And if you are a normal carpenter, it's a brace. Then you could do an equilateral triangle. They'd call this a bridge brace. And it's a little wider than I'd care to spread my legs right now. It is wide, good for a bridge. It was also used for roofs. You'll find them in Amsterdam, London, Hamburg, all those places, even down into Innsbruck. If it's narrow, they'll do this. Gives you headroom. They didn't use trusses. They'd build the individual rafters. And also the roofs on the towers. But the most common roof in Europe is actually more like our gift shop. It's not this steep. It's actually going back to the Egyptian 10 space. And there it is, right there. Egyptian pyramids, good roofs, very common. But this is the number one reason that they went to 12 spaces. Not for the length of the ruler. It's this. This is the Pythagorean right triangle of the Greeks. It's an ultimate truth that if you have 3, 4, and 5, you have a right angle down here. And carpenters love the right angle. That's also an ultimate truth. And so, if you have the 12 spaces, you can do this.
These will be the roof tiles that go on the top of the circular turrets.
So this,
The potter
tiles
makes
spun
that.
by your foot? How is that?
Now, do you actually make these clay tiles?
Yes.
Here you do.
Just put it on there and smooth it out. And
So,
then
go ahead.
just bend it back to hold it on. I'm the apprentice, so I can only make one or two.
One or
And
two?
It's real hard for me to do it.
Okay. And does the kiln do anything other than make it look a different color?
It hardens it so it doesn't break as easy.
Okay.
And where's the and are all these roof tiles kiln dried?
That one ain't, but those are.
Those are, so
before
you
they
have to
go up,
kiln.
they'll be kiln dried. Where's the raw material come from? The actual clay itself.
Yeah.
All I
You know?
know is it actually comes out of the earth.
It comes out of the earth. And so you're doing this to get oxygen in to keep the fire going? Is that what it is?
The more air that goes into the fire, the hotter it gets.
Okay.
So how this works is there's two chambers in here. There's a dividing wall right here, and you have a door. And if you look on the bottom, you can see one,
Yep.
and it hinges like this.
Uh-huh.
And there's another one in the middle here.
Right.
So that when I push down, when I pull on this rope, it pulls this chamber up, and this door will close since it's pushing on the bottom of that wall.
Uh-huh.
And this one will open, and it'll push the air through
Through.
this pipe and into the fire. And then when it drops, this bottom door opens up again and draws more air in.
Got it.
So what's the most complicated thing you've forged?
The majority of the stuff I make here really isn't that complicated. A lot of chisels, stuff like that. Let's see. Things that are more artistic, have a little bit more decoration, are usually a little harder. Things like that.
And what was that used for?
This is a fire rake for
Okay.
pulling coals in.
Mm-hmm.
Is wool that I think it actually came off of, this might be some that came off of Oily Boy. He's our ram. But I'm not positive about that. But this has not been washed, but it doesn't smell too much like a barnyard, and you can smell the lanolin in it. And if you touch it, your fingers will be oily. That's the natural oil that the sheep produce. It's used in cosmetics and lipstick and lip balm. It helps get rid of stuff that's in the wool. Leaves, seeds, even if you wash it, there's leaves and seeds and twigs. So that helps clean the wool a little bit. But the most important thing that this does is it separates the fibers and aligns them so that they're all running in the same direction. This is some of the wool that I passed around earlier, and that's the carded stuff now, so you can feel the difference. Then, it's thought by some historians that the spinning wheel was invented by the Chinese 2,000 years ago. It took over 1,300 years before the spinning wheel was in widespread usage and acceptance. So until then, all of your spinning, especially during the time our castle is portraying, all of your spinning in Western Europe would have been done with a drop spindle. And a drop spindle is a weight attached to a shaft. I have literally stuck pencils into potatoes and spun yarn on a potato before. But the principle of spinning is simply the principle of twisting fibers together. So if I set this thing to spinning like a top, it creates a twist that works its way up the yarn, and then when I pull the fibers down, that twist goes into those fibers and it becomes yarn. There are little scales on the fibers that catch onto each other.